that old thing of cash is king, I'm afraid, is so true. It's made our lives much easier. We make decisions now. It used to be if I made a $1,000 decision, it was the biggest decision of the month. Now, gosh, that's so. Those are the two that I treasure the most.
Thank you. All right, let's get rid of a stereotype. And I know it's not a stereotype that was created by women. It's created by men, saying that women don't help women, that women don't support women, that if you want to work for somebody, don't work for a woman. Well, I want to get rid of that stereotype. I'm going to start with you.
Okay. And I saw this, I see it, of course, at the Women's Business Development Center, but I saw it at the bank. It's unbelievable how many successful women business owners help other women business owners. You've heard of when there's a problem with access to capital. Of course, this is usually done in a very, very private way, but as a banker, right, I would see where the equity was coming from. And it's unbelievable in the worst of times, not the best of times, but in the worst of times, how many women business owners invest in other women's businesses. That's one of the privileges I had, that I had access to a lot of confidential information. And even though it's not shared, I would get to see that. And that was the most significant. The other thing that I saw... Personally, I've been helped a lot in recent years. When I started at the bank, I worked in the commercial and corporate bank. There weren't a lot of women, and I have to say that in the early days, there were men who had wives and daughters, and wanted to help someone at work too. And I have to say, in the early days, the people that helped me along were male mentors. But in recent years, it's people like all of you. I mean, I could point to people in the room that help me on a daily basis, and they help me in my professional life, and they help me in my personal life. We all have, no matter what facade you see, we all have bad days, right? And, it's really nice to have a shoulder to cry on. So, and I don't want to minimize the importance and the strength of having that shoulder to cry on.
Thank you.
This is a hard question for me to answer because being in a male-dominated industry, there aren't really a lot of women that I can talk to. I talk to women in other industries, and you're right. It's so nice to be able to vent, and I have a shoulder to cry on. But and I've had male mentors who have been very kind to me, and especially when I was in international and needed a lot of help. I had two gentlemen who couldn't have been better. But really, I think my biggest mentor was my mother. She, I always have to think about her. She came to the United States when she was 18 years old and didn't even know the language. She came from Germany, and she learned the language and went to business school, got a job on her own. Now, this was in 1925. Wow. And... of course, then my father walked in the office and they fell in love, and it was, but she was always a strong, sturdy woman, and you could do anything you wanted to do. She lived to be 98, and she was planning her 100th birthday party when she fell ill. And I always have to laugh because she had a 90th birthday party with a DJ, and she said, I'm not having a cheap DJ for my 100th. It's going to be a band. So I got a lot from my father, but I really feel I got the most from my mother. Her thinking process, her strength just boosted me every day.
As we're wrapping up, I want to get one piece of advice that you would give to other women. Remember, we want to instill leadership. That's really what we're about. If you're a leader and you don't have any followers, or you're a leader and you don't encourage others, you're not a real leader. So we've talked about a number of issues of leadership that I think are really critically important. But what is one just important piece of advice that you would give our NAWBO members, our business owners, and you as women?
I'm glad she asked me again, because I think you and I have the same answer to this one too. I feel that unless you work in a job that you love, you will never get as far as you want to go. So you have to love your job, because there's going to be things that come up and days that you really are going to have all kinds of problems, and you're not going to take them well if you don't love your job to begin with. So love your job, work hard, keep on going no matter what it takes, because it will get better. And my biggest piece of advice to you today is it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it is time for all of you to get your mammograms.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with everything that Maureen said, but in the spirit of Steve Jobs, I think we always, on a daily basis, should think of what can be versus what was, because that's what leaders do.
Wrapping up, just a couple of little bits of advice about leadership. And what does it take to be a leader, and how do you then instill that in others? Certainly, collaboration and teamwork are critical. Learning how to deal with ambiguity. We all have too much of that in our life, but we better figure out how to deal with it, how to respond to it. As Maureen was saying, a work ethic is probably the most critical thing. Passion, passion, passion. You must love what you do. As Maureen and Amelia are both saying, you must love what you do and be passionate and committed to it. And the other is taking risks. Amelia talked about that in terms of being the only woman, one of the only women at Harris Bank, taking risks to be more than you were. Certainly Maureen took that on as the CEO of a company that she really didn't know anything about international. To be a leader, you have to be committed to driving change. You must be committed to driving change. The status quo doesn't work anymore. And the other is both these fabulous women were visionaries. And how do you need to look forward, not be stuck in the rut of what you're doing to be a true leader. And the other is self-awareness. So everybody talks about self-esteem, but it really is self-awareness. You have to know yourself, know your limitations, know your strengths, and accelerate the work that you do based on your strengths and overcoming your weaknesses. So I can't imagine two better people to have as examples of leaders. Amelia Domenko and Maureen Beal, we thank you very, very much for your insights and your profound views.